Many years ago, I remember rewatching George Foreman knock out Michael Moorer on YouTube. And in the comments, there was a bunch of people claiming that Michael Moorer took a dive. More recently, there was a bunch of people claiming that Anthony Joshua took a dive in the first Ruiz fight. They were making videos about it and all sorts. And these are just two random examples. There are literally countless others. And now people are claiming that Helenius took a dive against Wilder. Now, obviously, dives do happen in boxing. The most common scenario is when you have an overmatched journeyman who has no intention of taking a prolonged beating or getting knocked out legitimately, so instead takes the earliest opportunity to fake like he's badly hurt and find a comfy spot on the canvas to sit out the count. That happens all the time. What's far less common, in Western countries at least, is where you have a competitive matchup and one of the guys has been paid to take a dive. Yes, it has happened, but it's nowhere near as common in this day and age as many casual fans seem to think it is. And it comes down to the fact that a lot of these casuals just do not recognize the telltale physical signs of a genuine knockout. In most instances, not only have these people never boxed themselves, but they also haven't watched many fights in person up close, if any at all. So they have an untrained eye. Watching a fight on TV is very different to watching a fight in person. When you're there in person, ringside, the impact of the shots is so much greater than it looks on television. You can hear the shots. You get blood and sweat spraying all over you. You can see when a guy's knees are quivering, even when he's still upright, which you often don't see on TV. You get a better sense of his body language because unlike on television, his entire body, head to toe, is in full view all the time. You can hear the fighters breathing. You can hear the changes in their breathing. When a guy gets knocked out, you'll often see that his chest starts expanding and contracting really dramatically after he hits the deck, as his body starts trying to suck in all this extra oxygen. You'll see their eyes glazed over. Sometimes their eyes will even roll back in their heads for a brief moment. And like I said, if you've also boxed competitively yourself, then you will have seen all that, but also experienced it. You'll know what it's like to get hit and hurt. You know what it's like to hit and hurt someone else. You know how the look in a person's eyes changes when you've hurt them, even if their body language doesn't always show it. You can see it in their eyes. You know how powerful short punches can be. You've hit people with really short punches in sparring and in fights and dropped them. You've trained to get power on those short shots over many years. You've honed the technique to where you don't have to cock your fist back like you're about to throw a javelin. Your hips and your legs are doing all the rotation and generating the power. Your fist doesn't have to travel more than 6 inches. You know how to time a shot so your opponent walks into it and actually increases the impact. You've knocked people out doing that. You've seen their whole body go stiff and crash to the canvas right before your feet. Most people who watch boxing have never had these experiences. Now, there are some of them who are perceptive enough to pick up on these things regardless, but a lot of them are not, and therefore they simply do not know what they're looking at. They completely miss all the telltale signs of a genuine knockout and start claiming that 2 and 2 equals 5. I remember speaking to a couple of friends when Lennox Lewis got knocked out by Oliver McCall, and they were absolutely adamant that it wasn't even a hard punch. Obviously, these guys had never boxed. And I was like, are you lot on crack? I mean, if you saw Lewis's top lip after the fight, it was swole up like a bad Botox job. Or like he had an allergic reaction to some seafood or something. And he had a big gash in his mouth with a ton of stitches. And he got that with his gum shield in from one punch. And you're trying to tell me it weren't a hard shot? Are you mad, bruv? You see, when someone gets hit on the side of the face, their head will often snap violently to one side in the same direction as the punch, and that gives you a visual indication of the force behind the shot. But when someone gets hit square in the mouth, as Lewis did against McCall, their head doesn't snap to one side. On some occasions, it might snap back depending on the angle the punch is coming from, but often it won't. So that visual indication isn't there, even if the punch was just as hard. So a casual is going to look at that and think, well, that can't have been a very hard shot because his head weren't doing a 360. Another example of a punch like that was Mike Tyson against Franz Botha. Hit him square in the mouth. Shots like that often don't look as visually impactful as a shot on the side of the head, even if there's an equal amount of force behind them. It was the same scenario with Foreman against Mora, in fact, got hit square in the mouth. And in addition to that, most of the people who claim that Mora took a dive don't know Mora's history. Mora was a very chinny heavyweight. He got hurt and dropped on numerous occasions throughout his career, and in many instances by fairly innocuous looking shots. So when these casuals are seeing Mora hit the deck off a 6-inch punch from Foreman, they don't understand the context. And if you watch Mora when he's on the canvas, he's bleeding from the mouth. His lip was badly cut from that punch, again, with his mouthpiece in, just to give you some indication of how hard it was. Now, I'm not even going to address the first AJ Ruiz fight because the people who believe that AJ faked being hurt in that third round are simply too foolish to talk any sense into. I've got nothing but contempt for people who are that foolish. However, I will briefly address Wilder Helenius. Now, first of all, Wilder is a tremendous puncher, and he's hurt, dropped, and knocked out several people with short punches on the back foot like that, the best example being Artur Spilka. So he has back foot power. Secondly, Helenius doesn't have a great chin. He's been knocked out badly twice before, once against Johan Duopa and another time against Gerald Washington, who is not a big puncher. So this is a vulnerable guy. Thirdly, Helenius walked into the punch against Wilder, so that increases the impact. Fourthly, you could see Helenius's head snap back when the shot landed, giving you a visual indication of the force behind it. Fifthly, the punch made a big crack when it landed, giving you an audible indication of the force behind the punch and how clean it was. And the sixth and most important thing is the way Helenius fell and the way his body reacted on the canvas. Normally when a fighter takes a dive, they'll make some attempt to break their fall, usually with a glove or a forearm, because they don't want to hurt themselves when they hit the deck, especially with a heavyweight, because the impact on a canvas is much harder and therefore the potential for injury is much greater. But with Robert Helenius, he made absolutely no attempt to break his own fall whatsoever. If you watch the slow-mo from this angle, he gets hit in the face. You could see his eyes were gone as soon as the shot landed, and he crashes straight backwards onto the canvas. No elbow or arm out to try and break his fall, nothing. He may have even hit his head when he landed actually, but it's difficult to tell from this angle. And when he's on the floor, his body is absolutely stiff as a board. His legs are quivering and his eyes are catatonic. These are all telltale signs of a genuine KO. When someone gets knocked out, they lose all the strength in their body. So even the most basic movements like rolling over onto their side become near on impossible. And you could see Helenius making some feeble attempt to move, but there was just no strength there. When a fighter is badly hurt, it isn't just their legs that turn to jelly. Their arms often turn to jelly as well. When they're on their front and attempt to push themselves off the canvas, their arms will often give way and they'll land on their face. We saw that on the weekend with Brock Jarvis, right? But with Helenius, he didn't have the strength to even do that. He was totally gone. You simply cannot fake this collection of bodily reactions on cue, unless you've rehearsed it a bunch of times and you're some type of professional actor or professional stuntman even. Do you know how dangerous it is for a guy as heavy as Helenius to fall straight back like that and make no attempt to break his fall? People, come on. You're acting like he never even got hit. If you can watch this slow motion from this angle and still come back here and claim that Helenius took a dive, then you're a lost cause. It's as simple as that. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you're tired of the biased narratives and mass censorship on mainstream platforms, and you want to be part of a community of critical thinkers who love free speech just as much as you do, then come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide variety of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&As, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got an Element group where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. Unlike Discord, it has full end-to-end encryption, is decentralized, and is 100% censorship free. You can also send voice notes as well as much larger audio and video files than you can on Discord. So come and sign up on Patreon. There's no contract, there's no commitment. You can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a cup of coffee. So I'll see you over there. I'm out.